If we're going to rewrite history, let's set the record straight right from the start. According to the scientific community, sufficient geological evidence was found in the Wonderweg cave in South Africa. Enough evidence to suggest our earliest human ancestors were dark-skinned people who had mastered the controlled use of fire and emigrated from Africa to other parts of the world. In other words, there is no human history without Black history. Additionally, Sarah Clark Kaplan, Executive Director of the Anti-Racist Research and Policy Center in Washington, D.C., tells us, indeed, there is no American history without African American history. History, however, is written by people with power, money, education, and voice, who often discount or take credit for the contributions of others to maintain their elevated status. 18th century French scientist and author Bernard Le Bovier de Fontenelle once said, "History is only a fable which people consider as true." And that fable in the United States is white supremacy. So celebrating Black history is essentially a subversive act that recalls the achievements of Black people who have been left out of our nation's history books. So let's see if we can name some of the Black musicians who gave us jazz. Just say it out loud. I'll repeat it so the folks online can hear what you say. Louis Armstrong. Oh, got to hear you better. Ella Fitzgerald, Scott Johnson. Ledbetter. Louis Armstrong. Cindy Bechet. Duke Ellington. Chick Corea. Count Basie. Yeah, we good? Okay. Now let's name some of our famous Black singers, or our favorite, I should say, also famous, like Aretha Franklin. Billie Holiday. Ella Fitzgerald. Ray Charles, Nina Simone. The Supremes. Say it again. Mahalia Jackson? I got it? Okay. Lionel Richie. George Benson. Bernice Reagan. B.B. King. Awesome. Thank you. That was fun. I know it's interesting when Susan moves from the piano to the pew. Without Black history, did you know that there would be no Coca-Cola? Because the cola nut is indigenous to Africa and was brought to the U.S. on slave ships. Other foods indigenous to Africa include the watermelon, yams, and I don't eat okra, so I didn't bring a prop. Okra and black-eyed beans. And did you know that barbecued meat is the practice that originated in West Africa? So the next time you fire up the grill and you have company, please let them know. Plantation owners encouraged slaves to plant familiar foods in their gardens to help keep their investment healthy. In fact, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson's gardens were planted with heirloom seeds from Africa. According to Shantavia Johnson, the Associate Vice President for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at Clemson University in South Carolina, Inventions by Black people have gone largely unrecognized or lost to history because enslaved people were considered property and unable to obtain patents. So their inventions were claimed by their white enslavers or local entrepreneurs. A good example of this is the invention of the cotton gin, attributed to Eli Whitney when in fact it was enslaved people who designed the inner workings of the machine, and Whitney who obtained and defended the patent. And the only name we have is a man named Sam. Sam, no last name. Although freed Black people were able to obtain patents for their inventions, they were often told white people would not buy their product if they knew it was invented by a Black person, or they simply did not have the capital to begin manufacturing their inventions. This usually resulted in the sale of their patent to a white investor who made a fortune while the Black inventor remained unknown and penniless. More props. Here are a few other tidbits of history you may find interesting. This look familiar to anybody? I didn't buy it with my professional expense card. Susan did. Oh, okay. She's taking it home with her after the service. In 1856, Nathan Nearest Green, a master distiller in Tennessee, introduced a method of distillery from West Africa to produce Uncle Nearest's whiskey, which is a lot like Aunt Jemima's pancakes, right? Credit for Nearest's whiskey was given to his minister and slave owner, Dan Call. And if you have ever seen a label on Jack Daniel's whiskey, he's the guy with the big mustache and the big broad-rimmed hat. Jack Daniel was an apprentice of Nearest, who purchased the distillery and distributed the product under his known name when Nearest died. It wasn't until 2016 the whiskey company gave proper attribution to Nearest. In 1853, George Crum Speck, a chef at the Lake House Resort in Saratoga Springs, invented the Saratoga potato chip. And in 1932, Herman Lay became the first entrepreneur to successfully bag the product and sell it in Nashville, Tennessee, where he founded Lay's Potato Chips. The potato chips were a staple offering on the menu, but if you tried to put them in a paper bag, the bag would get all oily. And so it wasn't until they learned to laminate the inside of the bag with something that looks like aluminum foil that they were able to purchase it without a meal. In 1878, 16-year-old Osborne Dorsey invented the doorknob in Washington, D.C. Prior to his invention, doors were opened with a leather strap handle and closed with a latch. In 1882, Ellen Elgin invented the clothes wringer. Anybody remember their mother having one of those? Me too. Linda, you had one. I love it. Let's see. She sold the patent to a white entrepreneur for $18 and never received any public recognition or financial gain. She was an office worker in Washington, D.C. I wish Jim were here this morning. Thomas A. Carrington of Baltimore, Maryland, patented the modern-day stethoscope in 1882. Found it in the kitchen. Not sure I'd use it, though. It's pretty rusty. In 1884, Willie Johnson of Ohio invented the egg beater. And in 1884, Marcellus Gilmore Edison, a Quebec chemist and pharmacist, invented peanut paste as a high-protein alternative for those who could no longer chew meat. In 1891, Philip Downing of Providence, Rhode Island, invented the blue street mailbox. In 1897, Alfred L. Crayley of Pittsburgh invented the ice cream scoop with lever action. In 1897, Joseph H. Smith patented the lawn sprinkler in Washington, D.C. And in 1889, George T. Grant, a dentist in Boston, invented the wooden golf tee. In 1909, Matthew Henson was the first man to plant the U.S. flag at the North Pole. Robert Peary was too sick to complete the journey. And yet we all know about Admiral Peary, when in fact it was Matthew Henson. And the last slide, Garrett Morgan invented the gas mask in 1914 and the first traffic light in 1923. And he had a 6th grade education. According to the National Science Foundation's Social and Economic Sciences Division, invention was seen as a God-given ability of elite white males. This eliminated all possible recognition of black inventors. But as Unitarian Universalists, we believe the divine spark resides in all living beings, thereby bestowing the power of innovation and creation to all people. We didn't invent that. It already existed. When the contributions of black people are omitted from our nation's history, it elevates a false, racist narrative of white supremacy. I can think of no easier way to engage in the resistance of black oppression than to share with family and friends who invented Jack Daniels, the potato chip, peanut butter, the doorknob, the clothes wringer, the stethoscope, the street letterbox, the ice cream scoop, the lawn sprinkler, the golf tee, and the traffic light. These weren't senseless inventions. They came out of a need for an easier life or a safer life. Without black people, none of us would be here today. Just as there is no human history without black history, there is no full account of American history without African American history. May we become agents of truth who rewrite a more inclusive history of our nation, so our ancestors may rest in peace and our descendants may live fuller lives in a more just world. May it be so.